Although the decision by the opposition People's Democratic Party to throw its 2023 presidential ticket open has not been sealed yet by its National Executive Committee, NEC, there are clear indications that the party might compromise its otherwise bright chances in the next year's general election if it travels that route, while the decision could make PDP lose states like Oyo, Delta, Rivers, Abia, Enugu, Akwa Ibom, Benue, and Cross River. In the governorship election, even more interesting is the action that does not guarantee the PDP will make any impact in the key northern states to compensate for the expected loss in the south. For example, the PDP has never won Yobe and Borno states, and it is unlikely to perform any magic in 2023 to change the voting pattern. So the party will face an uphill task in winning these states, even with a northern presidential candidate and the APC fielding a southern candidate. However, the chairman of the PDP zoning committee and governor of Benue State, Samuel Otom, yesterday denied the claim, stating that the PDP National Executive Committee, NEC, will take a final decision on whether or not to throw the presidential ticket open. Let's talk about this, Tundu.
Well, I just think that it's one of those things. This is, for me, realpolitik in the Nigerian context at its ugliest, quite frankly. And who do we blame for facts? Whether you accept them or not, they are facts. So whether you want to apportion blame for the way the situation is, then you decide that. The North remains the beautiful bride here. Our political space is so North-dominated and North-focused. This is why other parts of the country felt left out in the cold, which results in agitation, such as those agitating for secession, which I personally will never agree with. But you can understand the rationale, and we continue to say it time and time again. Why did PDP decide to throw open the presidential race as has been reported so far? Yesterday we spoke to Governor of Benue, and he mentioned about the exigency of time. And I find that really strange, because it's not as if, oh, all of a sudden we've got an election around the corner. What do we do? What on earth do we do? No. We know the electoral cycle in this country, there will be an election every 4 years. So everybody ought to have been prepared. You don't get to now say, oh, it's too late. Certain people have bought their forms and we can't possibly shut them out. And all of this. It just sounds to me just such a tenuous, argument. It's really difficult to accept that argument. And what I just find so dismaying is in the Fourth Republic, somebody literally has to die before the South gets a look in. The reason why we had President Obasanjo in 1999 was to sort of compensate the Southwest for the whole June 12th debacle. And then we now had former President Goodluck Jonathan emerge because of the sad passing of President Umar Yar'Adua. Short of anybody dying, that is just the sense of entitlement that we see here. There's that on one hand, but on the other hand, it cannot be argued that the Northern electorate is a lot more politically engaged than we are. They actually come out and vote. While down here in the South, we tend to sort of twiddle our thumbs, we tend to tweet, we tend to rail against the government and what have you. On election day, people play football, or people just stay in their homes and watch telly. So that's one leaf that we must borrow from the Northern electorate. If you want to be a factor, if you want to be considered, then you have to make yourself a factor. You have to make yourself into a formidable bloc. Otherwise, you will be trampled in this fashion, and that's really just the bottom line.
Dr. Bati?
Well, it is clear that when the screening committee of the PDP gave the impression, I say impression because the party is yet to take a final decision, that it should throw open the ticket for the presidential position. There were reactions from the Southern and Middle Belt Forum. The Middle Belt Forum, PANDEF, and also Ohaneze. Ohaneze Indigo thought that this would be unjust for the North, for the PDP as a political party to throw open the ticket. The Middle Belt Forum said more or less the same thing. PANDEF said that there will be consequences. And in some of the analysis that we have read, we're told that the mood of the country is that the presidency in any political party should be zoned to the South. Right? Okay. Who knows what the mood of the country is? I mean, people cannot just sit down in a chair and say, this is the mood of the country. Okay? Because it's a very complex, heterogeneous country. And I was making the point yesterday that perhaps the average Northerner will not mind if power remains in the North. So that is one thing about that. And then to say that the PDP has already shot itself in the foot. Well, the PDP says a decision has not been taken yet. We had Samuel Otom, the governor of Benue State, on the program yesterday, and he was saying that the final decision will be taken by the neck of the party. And I remember drawing his attention to the fact that for that committee to have gone in that direction, then it means, that is probably the mood within the party. The biggest justification that they offer is that, look, the North on the platform of the PDP has done more years, Obasanjo, Yaradua, and, with the South, the South, just taking more of the years than the North, and that there will be need for a balance. That's the mood within the party, not within the country, okay? But those who say the PDP has shot itself in the foot, is it possible that the APC, seeing what has happened in the neighbor's yard, will also decide to say, if the PDP is going to go north, then we are not going to allow them to run away with the prize. What if tomorrow the APC decides to also pick a candidate from the north? So the analysis that the PDP has lost it and all of that, no, is fictitious. It's not borne out by the facts. And if anybody is relying on a certain survey, look, during this political season, there will be all kinds of surveys. People will do another survey tomorrow, and they will justify, the decision that the People's Democratic Party has taken. So it's not as if there is one survey, that is a Solomonic survey that can justify anything at all. Now, if you look at the facts again, in one story that I have read, what we're told is that, in fact, in the 2019 election, about 41 million persons voted from the north. Only about 27 million people voted from the south. Because Southerners are busy on social media, they are busy talking. We don't strategize in the south. We want power, but we don't strategize. We don't mobilize enough. So it's not through some kind of emotionalism, or armchair criticism that you get the kind of result that maybe the mood of the South reflects. The mood of the South is not the mood of the nation. There are persons in this country who think that the APC has done very well and who think that power should remain in the North. And as for, what is possible within the Nigerian equation, nobody can have a Solomonic conclusion on it. Because in this same country, we were told that a Muslim ticket was impossible. But MK Abiola and Baba Gana Kingibe ran on the platform of a PDP, of a Muslim ticket, and at the end of the day, they won, although they were denied the prize. Okay? So it's not enough to just say, this is possible, this is not possible, and it's early days yet. And I think people are saying, the PDP moving northwards, has shot itself in the foot. Have they discounted the fact that there will be a running mate? With a running mate, you can balance the equation. If you have a running mate, right, the running mate is not there for decoration. It's also there for the purpose of attracting some attention, right? And then, of course, it is important, two things are important here, not surveys, done by some people who may not even understand politics. What is important is, who is a candidate? The candidate itself has some value. Who is a running mate? That also will be useful. And then, what decision would they take in the neighbor's yard, in APC? The APC may also just decide to choose a candidate to throw his ticket open. We have been the ones doing the permutations, that with the chairman coming from here, with the chairman coming, with persons coming from there, the APC may not do this. Politics has been described by someone as the art of the possible. At the last minute, the politicians will decide on what is possible. I think that what is important overall is for us to say, as follows, that in 2023, with all these permutations are elite permutations. That's not what happens on the field. What happens on the field is how you are able to mobilize the voters. The same South that is saying if they don't choose a Southern candidate, there will be consequences. Will they go out to vote on election day? We are having an elite conversation. Half of these people who are saying this and that, they will run away a few days before the election. Many of them don't even have a voter's card. They are too big to obtain the PVC. They will be watching from London. In case problem happens, they don't want themselves and their families to be involved. When the election has been done and it's over, then they will come back and they will begin to talk again. The people who have the voice are the ones who should take the decision. The people who have the PVCs, they should be the ones to take the decision. Not people who see politics as commerce, as an influence arena. So there are many levels to this analysis, and I do not think that we should start jumping the gun because it's early days yet. Okay, so this, in a word, this is my view on this matter. We would like to see what they do in the neighbor's yard, that is the APC, and in all of these conversations, I keep saying we keep discounting the other political parties. What if we have, as was the case in Kenya, at a particular time, when opposition political parties came up together and became strong? The game is still open, and I do not think that we should restrict the analysis to North-South or to PDP and APC.
For me, I reiterate strongly that the PDP has shot itself in the foot with this decision. In God I trust, everything else is data. What's the fact on ground? The fact on ground are like the one this day enunciated. PDP has not won Yobe. Even at Damawa in the last election, PDP struggled to win at Damawa.
It was close. I think 20,000 votes.
It was very close. The three key states, I call them the KKK states you need to win in the north. Katsina, Kano, Kaduna. When the PDP won presidency in 2011, it was because they shared the votes of Kaduna. They split it across board, 1 million votes across board, but CPC then won a little bit above board. Kano is very resolute. Kano never changes. If you go back to the 79 elections, Aminu Kano won Kano with 76%. Wherever Kano goes, Kano will never be neck and neck. The only outlier that happened in that was the last elections, governorship elections, that because of the fight between Ganduje and Kwankwaso. So Kano is always resolute, Katsina the same. In the South too, you can't win the whole country without winning the South. Mr. Wike will give you some key votes out of Rivers. Delta will come in strong. Lagos too will come in strong. Those are the states you can at least poll 1 million votes. We forget that voter apathy too is also dropping. Do you want to say, because you want to ignore the zeitgeist of the nation, you want to jeopardize those bulk votes that will come out of Anambra, Delta, and the likes? Is that the case? We know politics is fluid, but it also calls for introspection and checking through the data. Those 6 key states I mentioned always swings any elections in this country. And if you discountenance the voice of the people, and I will go back, those that are making the argument that the North would like to be there, but this same North voted for Olusegun Obasanjo. This same North voted for Goodluck Jonathan. So the North doesn't have qualms. All the North and every part of Nigeria wants is a very good candidate that can bring Nigeria out of this economic quagmire.
But recall, even the arguments from the southern governors who said they want a southern president, the argument from some of the northern socio-political organizations was the
lobby.
Use of the word must.
Must, yeah.
But they don't have an intellectual objection.
Yes, so lobby. So they must reach across the aisle, and we must crunch the numbers. And you see, in the last days, it will come down to the numbers, and those are going to be fine margins.
Well, Lagos is also very strategic, and you don't need to win a state outright, the kind of argument people are putting out. You just need 2/3 of the votes.
Strategically.
So it doesn't matter whether APC wins a state, another party wins a state, if you can put up a good showing, and it's a question of strategy. Politics is all about strategy.
Yeah.
As I said, these are early days yet.
Okay.
We don't know what the PDP will decide, but I don't think, we should just jump ahead and begin to give Solomonic, conclusions that do not add up.
Moving on, after 9 days in captivity, the managing director of of Agricultural Bank of Agriculture, Alwan Ali Hassan, has regained freedom from his abductors. Ali Hassan was on March 28 kidnapped by the bandits who bombed Abuja-Kaduna train with over 362 passengers. Confirming his release, a senior bank official at the bank said Ali Hassan regained his freedom on Wednesday. In a chat with the Rise News, a source who spoke on condition of anonymity said Mr. Hassan regained his freedom unhurt after paying unspecified amount as ransom. For his family, it's all gratitude to God for a safe return alive. They're paying ransoms again.
It's so sad. I mean, this has always been the conversation of that whole don't negotiate with terrorist school of thought, the moral aspect of it all. When you pay ransom, you actually are funding terrorist activities and what have you. But try telling that to people whose loved one is in the clutches of these awful people. They will do anything to get them out. I mean, the Nigerian state cannot officially be seen to be paying ransom. But how do you then convince families not to do it? Now he was there for 9 days. I'm sure that 9 days felt like 9 years. And he's left other people there who must be going through absolute hell, as well as their families. So I'm just happy. Congratulations to him and his family. That's all I have to say. I'm just so happy that he's healthy and in one piece, which is a lot more than can be said for the other people who have been victims of this appalling national tragedy.
The BBC reported yesterday that 168 persons were yet to be rescued. It's not all the families of these 168 persons that have been contacted, or who have enjoyed the possibility of paying ransom, or who can afford ransom, or who can access the funds to be able to rescue their people. And that in itself, 1 week after that incident occurred, is an indication of the kind of serious problem that we face. And that is why it is also disturbing that more than 1 week after that incident, the security agencies, they've not been able on their own to rescue anybody. They've not been able to arrest anybody that got involved in this particular matter. 3, we're told there have been investigations. Nobody has been sanctioned up to this moment. Not even the Minister of Transportation, not even the Managing Director of Nigerian Railway Corporation, because they cannot be sanctioned, because they too, they've gone ahead to the public to say we have made efforts, we have made requests, nobody listened to us. The Minister of Transportation even said, look, the money he asked for, nobody gave him. And that this situation could have been avoided if somebody had tried to think out of the box or think ahead. That is where the problem lies. So this gentleman now, he has been, freed. Yes, we thank God for the fact that he has managed to survive in a problematic country where life has become very cheap and where existence is nasty, short, and brutish. But I think beyond him, we need to begin to think about those 167 persons that are still in the hands of the kidnappers and how to get them out, to make them free. How to remind them that Nigeria is a country that works for everyone, not only for the privileged that can pay ransom when they are kidnapped. We have not seen enough action on the part of government, apart from the initial, rhetoric, VCs to the scene of the tragedy and all of that. When we hear that the other persons have been freed, then of course there will be a bigger cause for jubilation, for celebration, for commendation. As it is, security, insecurity remains the bigger problem, the biggest problem facing Nigeria and whoever wants to be president of Nigeria in 2023. I hope, those persons who have been preaching posters will know that we are not interested in posters and the donation of money. We are interested in ideas and solutions that are practicable, that can be effectuated for the benefit of the people in the interest of the common good.
All right, that's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Rotus, we'll have Michael, we'll have Adesola, we'll have Aaron. Give us updates on Africa, global business, COVID-19, sport and activities across the globe. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rotus Adiri is here to give us an African business update. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Tunu. Good morning, Fry. Good morning, Doctor. We begin with a report from Wood Mackenzie, which, of course, is stating that oil theft in Nigeria has reached, it says it's beyond crisis point. There's the reports that just came out late, just a few days ago, late March, saying that record levels of crude theft are being suffered in Nigeria. This has, so this is Wood Mackenzie consultants. They cover the oil and gas markets, put out periodic reports. And this essentially just, it continues to amplify the calls from Tony Lumelu, from Timi Presilva, everybody else who has stated that oil theft in Nigeria is at extremely, extremely high levels. And when you consider the fact that we are suffering a revenue crunch, oil prices are high, and the forex reserves are not appreciating, this is something that needs to be amplified along with every other major talking point, from zoning in politics to every other big issue. This really needs to be amplified and needs to be at the top of the level as far as discussion is concerned for everyone in the country. So that's yet another voice being added to the ongoing issues with Nigeria and these oil theft issues. We know the government has said that they will address this. They've said that the oil smugglers are in trouble. Whereas there was a big visit that was made with Timi Presilva, Lucky Irabo, Defense Minister, so on and so forth, to the Niger Delta. We're yet to see anything. But again, Wood Mackenzie saying it is this beyond crisis point is what the report says. So I really would want that to sink in so everybody can understand this is beyond crisis. We move to fuel. Well, this is now in Kenya. Apparently, the Kenyan government and oil marketers have reached an agreement with respect to the ongoing fuel scarcity that's been going on. The marketers want to be compensated adequately for bringing in fuel into the country. Remember that Uhuru Kenyatta signed, 139 billion shilling supplementary budget, of which 34 billion was allocated for fuel subsidies. The issue, though, is that with where oil prices are, Kenya is estimated to be paying anywhere from 10 to 15, maybe as high as 20 billion shillings monthly in order to compensate, in order to cover fuel subsidies. So that 34 billion that Kenyatta allocated is only going to last for so long, and then you're probably right back to where you started as far as issues are concerned. But for now, they've reached an agreement, and hopefully the fuel shortages should end. Remember, Kenyans go to the polls in August to pick a new president. To Zimbabwe, very interesting development in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is allowing banks to set FX rates. You're looking at Mr. Dr. John Magunduya, who is on the left, the central bank governor of Zimbabwe. Because the parallel market is just running away from the official rates, they are now saying that the banks are going to be allowed to set FX rates. Now, they're still going to be monitoring them to make sure that they don't, things don't get out of hand. But it is expected that if they're going to move towards, I won't call it a market-determined rate, they just want to increase supply, which is why they're trying to let the banks take the lead here. The rates should possibly, the gap between the official rate and the back market rate, that if banks are allowed, that might move towards the parallel market rate, the black market rate. And then from Zimbabwe, we move to South Africa. British American Tobacco South Africa is saying that illicit cigarette sales could lead to a loss of about 19 billion rand annually. In South Africa. Just as a backup, South Africa banned cigarette sales, I think it was in May of 2020, along with during the lockdowns. BATSA, that's British American Tobacco South Africa, sued because they sell cigarettes, and South African government released, or rather took away the ban. They took off the ban before the case went to court. This was in August. They now put out a study saying that, well, one, the ban didn't improve the health of smokers or in any shape or form. And then two, the study that they conducted said that smuggling had increased, and that there were different outlets that were selling cigarettes under the minimum retail price. They're not paying taxes, so on and so forth. So if you consider South Africa's revenue crunch, 19 billion rand is a lot of money. And so they're saying that they should set a floor as far as prices are concerned, and they should also crack down on smuggling in South Africa with respect to cigarette sales.
I want to ask you about Zimbabwe's situation with their inflation at 73%. Yeah.
It's even better now. That's
it was triple digits before.
Yeah. But it's still 73%. So why are they still resisting their own calls from the industry to sort of close that gap between the parallel rate and the bank rate?
So when you have a situation like in Zimbabwe, that country has been hit hard by speculators. So if you heed the calls of the industry to try to unify rates, and you're essentially saying they should move towards what the black market is saying.
Yes.
Right, but then there are a lot of speculators. If the four of us decide here that, oh, okay, they're moving towards the FX rate, all right, let's hop in there and try to push. You can push the rates, essentially, it goes even further, because participants in the markets are the ones that determine what the rate is. And if you've got lots of speculators that are targeting your country, which is the same language that the CBN here in Nigeria has tried to, to forestall. Right. So it's happened in Egypt. If your currency is targeted by speculators, they will drive the rate up, and then that now takes it out of the control of the central bank. It drives this pass-through effects on inflation. It drives the cost of goods and services, which is why you have 73% inflation. So it's a tough situation for Zimbabwe, but hopefully we'll have to monitor things and see whether the bank participation improves things.
And the truth is, let's not deceive ourselves, Rotus, because we like to do that a lot. The CBN will still have to defend the currency of the country. The Federal Reserve defends the dollar.
Right.
If you are to leave the dollar at a free float rate, it will not be at that rate it is. Well, it's been propped up.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the word. So if Zimbabwe is doing this, I mean, they're just doing it for the best they can, at least to be able to cushion the effect of something that slows back way back to the days of sanctions, to the days where things have even gone bad in the first place, to all this reckless decision of Mugabe printing money as much as possible and all of that. So the economy is in comatose as we speak.
But real quick, if you want to defend your currency, you've got to sell stuff. You have to sell stuff that will bring in FX and moderate your rates.
Know that
and Zimbabwe
doesn't sell stuff again.
Right.
It used to be the bread basket of Africa.
Correct.
Before, when all the farmers were there, but they don't sell agricultural produce any longer.
Right.
And that's just it.
Farm issues and so on.
that's why your currency can't be strong, because there's no productivity in there.
There you go.
Concerning crude oil theft, we deceive ourselves again. This media has come to tell us again that it's passed beyond critical points. But why do we act like we don't know what's happening in this country? The first time any literature on crude oil theft came to national prominence was in the national dailies in the 80s. So we've been talking about crude oil theft since the 80s, and nothing has been done as regards it. We know the problems on ground, but we keep setting up a committee to solve it, but we can't still solve the problem. That shows you there's a lot of complicity. We just keep deceiving ourselves. Keep deceiving Nigerians. So, Ndo?
Well, crude oil theft. Wood Mackenzie is not telling us something we do not already know. But the characterization of the problem is what is interesting. That, look, it has moved beyond a crisis point. To the extent, according to Mackenzie, that investors are no longer interested in Nigeria. After all, Shell declared force majeure in the Focados pipeline area. Aitio, that is in charge of the Nembe Creek area, is also saying he's having problems because of crude oil theft and pipeline vandalism in particular. OML 17, which is owned by Hess Oil and Gas, that's the one belonging to TOE, Tony Elumelu and Associates. In December alone, they recorded up to 97% loss. Austin Avuru has also come forward, formerly of Seplat, had also come forward to say, look, up to about 80% of what is produced in Nigeria is stolen. Now, what the report by Mackenzie has again done is to reiterate all of these claims. Whether you talk about 80%, 90%, 97%, the truth of the matter is that it has been pointed out that Nigeria loses up to about 200,000 barrels per day as a result of theft. Okay? And then we are unable to meet our OPEC quota. I know Timi Presiva, Minister of State for Petroleum, has been talking about attempts to meet that quota. But can we meet that quota in the face of crude oil theft, pipeline vandalism, aging infrastructure, weak infrastructure, resulting in the kind of blowout that we had the other day in the Nembe area.
Yep.
The whole of the eastern, front of oil production in Nigeria, Eastern Delta, is affected. Okay, the question is, the story is well told already. What are the authorities doing about it? The Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Authority, led by Mr. Gbenga Komalafe, said that the president had given very strong instructions that a committee should be set up, efforts should be made. It's 3 weeks now since that instruction was given. Is that committee going to sit perpetually? What are the outcomes of that meeting that Mr. Komalafe talked about? What are the findings? And what is the way forward? What are they going to do? These oil thieves, they are not ghosts. They are human beings. And the report by McKinsey says that this went up, the oil theft went up phenomenally in 2021. Does this have something to do with 2023 election? Are people stealing our crude oil? Are they stealing our crude oil because they are looking for money for election? And who is looking the other way so that more money can be stolen from Nigeria to influence that ordinary Nigerian who will not make an informed choice, who will be given 10,000 naira a day before the election.
There you go.
And all the people who will be bribed at polling booths and who will, as a result of that, make uninformed choice. So it's a national security crisis.
Indeed.
And I think it's important that we don't keep just talking about it on the pages of newspapers and relying on the findings of our consultants. We already know what the problem is. Who is going to solve that problem and how quickly can we move?
All right.
Thank you, Rogers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on to more business update. Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. Let's have a look at the Asia-Pacific markets first of all. And the general feeling here has been that they've been buying on the dip, basically. It doesn't quite hold up that theory, but for want of something better, that's what I'm going to say, what's been happening this morning. NASDAQ actually NASDAQ and Hong Kong-based JD.com has been announcing a bit of a reshuffle at the top of its chair, and everybody quite likes that, quite honestly. Japanese stocks dropped about 2%. Shares of fast retailing, 2.89. Mainland Chinese stocks declined. Shanghai Composite down. Hang Seng down a bit as well. Let's talk about what's happening in the lockdown in China. Lots of problems about this for the world economy, particularly Shanghai is such a hub of activity, but they're saying the smartphone market could plunge. The smartphone market there could plunge by about 20%. It won't hit Apple so much. That's only because they've just announced, or they've recently announced some new models there. But the Android phone itself has been on a bit of a downside as we speak. So basically, that's the feeling about China smartphone sales going down about that amount as a result of the slowdown. Now, you won't need reminding about this because I'm sure it's very much a subject clear to your heart, but fertilizer prices are going to cause a global food price increase, and also lots of scarcity as well. It's left the war with Ukraine has not just left it short of grain, but left it short of fertilizers as well. Farmers are wondering what to do about that, and commodity brokers are saying, well, look, this is a triple whammy. We've got geopolitical risk, higher input costs, and basically shortages as well. And US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen cautioned yesterday that Russia's attack will have enormous economic repercussions around the world. We sort of know that, don't we? Let's recap what happened in the United States yesterday. And those all-important FOMC minutes came out. All the confirmation that you need. I mean, what could be more telegraphed than this? Yes, they're going to they're going to slow down asset purchases by 95 billion a month. The next rate rise could be 0.5%, 50 basis points, if you like that kind of language. What else do you want to say about this? I mean, brokers have been looking at this. The markets were trying to analyse it. The Dow down 100 points yesterday. Futures down very, very slightly today. But that's the word. That's the basic underlying things, that things are tightening now in the United States. So as Rufai has been saying for many weeks now, and he's absolutely right. Of course, the problem here is how to avoid stagflation. as the United States tries to intervene with pretty clumsy monetary tools, just like we all do, really, which are called interest rates. For those of you who don't know that already. The EU is hooked on Russia gas. Again, this is something, even though these sanctions have been more sanctions against oligarchs, more sanctions against Putin's daughters. Somebody in London was saying yesterday, I was listening to, saying it's a bit like a note from your grandmother saying you've been a bit naughty, the sanctions. The real thing is reducing Russia's oil and gas exports. And Europe is very unwilling to do that absolutely right now. It just is not going to do that. And when you look at what Gazprom actually does, it exports 540 billion cubic meters of gas. No, I don't know what that means either, but I can tell you what it is. It's bigger than the total of Shell, Chevron, ExxonMobil, and Saudi Aramco put together. That's how much they export. That's what it means to their economy, and that's what the EU is unwilling to let go at the moment. I was listening to a German trade minister yesterday saying, how on earth do we explain that? How do we explain cold houses and cold apartments next winter to our voters? It's a problem that they've got. Here's an energy policy in the United Kingdom. Boris Johnson is aiming for a 5-fold boost for offshore wind energy. There are going to be 8 more nuclear reactors delivered on existing sites at the moment. Although there were no proposals, and a lot of commentators and a lot of campaigners got very annoyed about this. Nothing for insulating homes. What the government's keen to stress about this is a supply increase, not a home insulation scheme, so that's what is actually planned. It's hoped that we will become relatively self-sufficient by 2030. Who knows? That's a long way ahead. UK scale of COVID loan fraud. You remember talking this, the bounce back loans? Sure enough, £47 billion laid out. 4.9 billion of that has gone missing. There's a surprise. And it's not just organised crime getting the little fingers in here. It's the little companies as well that were actually overstating how big they were so that they get bigger loans. And there was no measure of how this money went out by the British Business Bank. Disgraceful, isn't it? Oil prices, I said they fell yesterday because the IEA came out with those figures of that coordinated release of oil onto the market. In total, US doing 180 million barrels now, and also inventories not doing too badly either. But I have Brent crude and WTI risen by about 1% to I've got Brent at 102 and WTI at 97, so below the $100 a barrel. But things could change. Things could change today. Things change on a daily basis. And Rotis and I will be talking a little bit more about this in the GBR. But just the headline is that Shell has written off $5 billion worth of assets after it got out of Russia. That is the global view this morning.
All right, Michael, real quickly, great to have you back. Missed you yesterday. Real quickly, I'd like to talk about the $9 trillion on the balance sheet of Fed. How is the Fed going to sort this out? And it's not going to cause mayhem, because I see that number is quite staggering. And when you look at America, they've been doing a lot of, can I use the word, unexpected spending. Look at what they're doing in Ukraine, for instance, another 1.7 billion, in funds and aid, to fund the Ukrainian war, the likes. And all of this keeps increasing, coupled with the debt that was taken during COVID. The UK alone took about 300 billion in debt. So how will the Fed balance this 9 trillion going on the balance sheet? And secondly, what will be the state of play as regards oil and gas now that they flooded the market, about 120 million barrels into the market now?
To deal with your second point first, if I may, I don't think that the release of that is actually flooding the market. The market's very much bigger than that. What they've done is they've given a declaration of intent. I still feel that this is just tiny little gestures at the moment. Shows it can be done, but anything can be done given time. It's a question of what happens right now. And I feel as though when the EU has finally got to grips with saying that we will buy less oil and gas from from Russia, then I think we will have turned a corner in this kind of sanctions business, in weaponizing finance, if you like. I don't feel that's happening right now. I don't think that this is flooding the markets. I mean, this is just the releasing on the markets, if you like, a bit of strategic reserve, and some of that's come from other countries as well. And we've got, remember, we do have OPEC standing firm as we speak at the moment on their increase of only 400 barrels per day per month. So that's all that they're doing. They've not moved on that, and that's very important. And I was talking late last night to some of the Gulf state commentators. I was taking part in a program for them late last night, and they were saying that they want to stay neutral as far as this is concerned. And a lot of countries are exactly like that too. For example, India and China, South Africa even, wanting to remain neutral in what's going on at the moment. So really, the fundamentals are not moving an enormous amount. They'll only move an enormous amount, I think, when the EU stands up and says, right, we're going to take none or less, or we're going to ban, or whatever they're going to do. But I don't think that's going to happen for a long, long time. As far as the trillions are concerned, yes, all the Fed's been saying is that they're going to cease buying bad debt, basically. They're going to cease taking those kind of loans. I think that'll put the banking sector in something of a bigger crisis than government funds. But do remember that government borrowing, and I'm sure I don't need to remind you, is a bit like that circus trick of keeping all those plates spinning for as long as possible. As soon as one falls off, they have to go to another one. This is what government debt's all about. It's not real, it's all about perception. If the perception is that the Fed is tightening, then their debt will increase in value, and interest rates will rise, and the dollar will rise as well. And somewhere in all that miasma of what actually goes on, and that's what it is. If you ask anybody to explain what actually happens, they don't know. They do it day by day, and it's all about what's in there rather than what's laid out in cash piles on the table. I can't explain it any other way. That's what happens.
Well, the last time I drew attention to the fact that the International Energy Agency was planning to persuade its members to increase output, crude oil output, that is. You were a bit skeptical about how much impact that will make. Now, IEA has now taken a decision that its members would add to the output with about 60 million barrels. This is following up on the U.S. under President Biden, giving a statement saying about 180 million barrels will be put out there from the strategic petroleum reserves of the U.S. And now the third leg of it, ExxonMobil, Chevron, and Mobil are also saying that, well, they are not profiteering from the oil price crisis that we're facing, and they too are going to ramp up production. What effect can all of this have? The big oil companies saying they will increase production. President Biden saying 180 million, barrels per day, or total rather. Is this all about in the U.S. mid-November, elections? And then there's been so much talk about green energy as an alternative. How quickly, how soon can that alternative come on board to help mitigate the current crisis that we are all facing?
As far as clean energy is concerned, I do feel, like I said the other day, it's really, it's really about what's absolutely necessary. And at the moment, I'm sure people's thoughts are turning towards heat in the next winter, maybe even some heat now. I'm not sure where clean energy goes in that kind of debate. And remember, these targets are a long, long way away. I mean, it doesn't seem a long time, but it is. I mean, it was last December we were talking about, COP26, weren't we, and what the effect of that would be. And last autumn as well, we were talking about similar kind of things. So I really don't. I mean, clean energy remains an aspiration, but at the moment, globalization is now, as far as fuel is concerned, as far as energy is concerned, sort of over, and its countries are actually looking to themselves to do the best that they can. Hence the hesitation in the EU actually banning oil and gas, because there's nothing else at the moment. There may be in the future, Russian oil and gas, banning that. But there's nothing else. There may be something in the future. I really don't know. As far as the IEA is concerned, again, I would just repeat what I've already said about that. I think it's good that that's happening, but it's such a tiny amount. And yes, it was greeted by a slight fall in the oil price yesterday. But when you weigh up what's actually happening, it's such a tiny amount. It does show that there is a willingness to produce, but until you get the likes of OPEC doing something like that, nothing's going to happen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wilson. Time now for a short break on the morning show. Now, for an update on the COVID-19 pandemic, Adeswa Omoran is here with us. Good morning, Adeswa.
Good morning, Tunung. Good morning, Dr. Abati, and good morning, Rufai.
Morning.
But in the last 7 days, we now know that COVID-19 infections, all cases as well as deaths, have been on a decline globally, according to the WHO. Well, let's look at the latest vaccination update here in Nigeria. 19.5 million targeted eligible people in the country have now received a first dose of the available vaccines in the country, while another 13 million people, or 11.5% of the targeted population, have been fully vaccinated. The Nigerian government has made more changes to existing COVID-19 measures in view of declining cases in the country. This comes a few days after the country introduced a new international travel guideline for passengers and airlines. Well, let me highlight some of these changes as quickly as I can, because it's a lot. Now, the 12 midnight to 4 a.m. curfew has been lifted. Advisory limiting Nigerians to essential travels has also been lifted. No limitations on air travels, both domestic and international flights. However, travelers must abide by all existing protocols, including wearing face masks on board. No limitations on inter or intrastate travel. And in the area of industry and labor, the government recommends virtual meetings by offices. It also announced the removal of limitations of number of staff reporting to work. This means that offices can now resume physical attendance fully. It is asking for offices to be better ventilated, while recommending the use of rapid antigen tests for workers. Limitations on the number of persons attending informal and formal gatherings has also been lifted, talking about those weddings, parties. They can now be full capacity. All bars, nightclubs, pubs, and event centers are only allowed to operate at 50% capacity, with limitations on hotels, restaurants, and gyms fully lifted. For schools, all non-pharmaceutical measures should remain in place. Face masks remains mandatory for adults in educational facilities. Those 18 and above should be fully vaccinated in our schools. And for political gatherings, the PSC, which is the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 in Nigeria, says all protocols listed by the electoral body. So it's basically leaving this to INEC as its responsibility. So for all political gatherings, INEC will set up its guideline, and political parties are to follow, with mandatory temperature checks and use of hand sanitizers. Generally, face masks are mandatory indoors, but they are recommended or voluntary outdoors. These measures, you recall, were put in place at the beginning of the pandemic. So we're almost seeing an entire lifting of restrictions in Nigeria, but it's not totally gone. Elsewhere, European health officials say it's too early to consider giving a fourth mRNA coronavirus vaccine to most people, but say an extra booster can be administered to those age 80 and above. In a statement, the European health officials say data for a fourth dose of the COVID vaccines made by Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna show it provides only marginally high protection. But it comes at a time when Israeli researchers revealed in a large study of 1.3 million people that a fourth dose of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine lowered rates of COVID-19 infections among elderly, but protection against infection appeared short-lived. The second booster's protection against infection dwindled actually after 4 weeks. However, against severe infections, protection did not wane during 6 weeks after administering the dose, but the scientists say that more follow-up study was needed to evaluate its longer-term protection. Now, the study of the 1.3 million people aged 60 and older looked at data from the Ministry of Health in Israel, and of course, between the period of January 10th and March 2nd this year. And that's the period where we had the Omicron variant predominant in Israel. So it might be explainable why we're seeing this kind of result, because we know the Omicron variant is highly transmissible. Back to you guys.
I'd like to comment on, the further directives from the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 in Nigeria. As I said yesterday, the important detail here is about communicating this position, widely to the people. And some of those new protocols that the PSC has announced, these are protocols that the people have already adopted in any case, like religious gatherings. I don't know whether there's any religious body that is still observing, those earlier protocols that were put in place in November 2021. The truth of the matter is that the churches opened up long ago and they abandoned the protocols. So it looks like the Presidential Steering Committee is just accepting the reality of the day that is out there. As to the optional use of face masks, I think that has not also been well communicated enough, because you still go to some places and you are told no, you have to use the face mask, and you remind them, this is what the federal government of Nigeria has said, and they will tell you they are not even aware, okay? Even if those establishments have the right to put their own protocols in place based on their own processes. But it's just for everyone to be aware that this is where Nigeria is at this particular moment. The third thing, of course, is whether or not this is a copycat response. The rest of the world is opening up, and I hope it's not that Nigeria is also doing a copycat, modeling, saying, oh, if they have opened up in UK, in Canada, in Denmark, in Netherlands, we too should do the same thing here. But what I take away from the latest directive is a point about personal responsibility, because that's a very strong part of the latest message from the Presidential Steering Committee. Take charge of your own protection and your own safety from COVID-19. And I think that that's what everyone would need to focus on. If you feel like using the face mask, then of course, go ahead and use it. And then of course, get vaccinated. Because what we're told by all the relevant authorities is that vaccination will protect you. You may not have the opportunity of taking the fourth jab, as they are now taking in the United States and elsewhere, or taking up to 90 jabs, as that gentleman in Saxony, in Germany did fraudulently, it will appear, but at least protect yourself. Okay? Thank you.